We want to get now to Bryan Claypool. Bryan has been here on our set before. Bryan, good to see you. You were at the Vegas shooting, so you're very aware of what these people have gone through and are currently going through.
In fact, some of those people were actually at both of these shootings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still have my
Yes.
wristband off from the Vegas
Yes.
shooting.
And you've been a very big advocate and vocal about this.
Yeah, and since the Vegas shooting, there were a lot of private survivor groups that were formed on social media. And there are thousands of victims of the Las Vegas shooting who were glued together after the shooting through social media, through these private groups. And oftentimes, individuals would just post, hey, we're going to Borderline, for example, on next Thursday night. Any survivors from the Vegas shooting want to join me? There could be a concert. People would post and then bring in, it's like a fellowship group, like a lifelong family that was created from the Vegas shooting. That's why you have a lot of the Vegas shooting survivors at the Borderline.
So have you been there before?
I have not, but I have gotten 2 text messages in the last hour from clients of mine in the Vegas shooting who are now friends. Who one young lady sent me a note with a big heart saying, "Borderline's my bar." So there are a lot of people, especially in the country music world, very tight-knit community, and a lot of them have frequented Borderline.
We spoke with a couple earlier who lost their daughter in the movie theater shooting in Aurora, Colorado years ago, and they talked about the grief they continue to feel and the anger that they did feel that still shows up. This can't be, and every time this happens, it can't be easy for you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for mentioning about that, by the way. So I started getting text messages at 4 in the morning from people back east, and like, "Are you okay?" And I didn't know yet about the shooting. And of course I was like, "What are you talking about?" Then I turned on your station and I saw that, and immediately I was in a daze. So I felt like I was taken back to the Las Vegas shooting. So for the first couple hours this morning, I was just literally staring at the TV, you know, saying to myself, is this really going on? Are we really losing precious young human lives, just murdered when they're out at a bar? So it took me a while just to work through that. And so I'm going through a lot of my own emotions, reliving. So you end up reliving what happened. And I know that a lot of the people impacted by the shooting are going through the same thing that we did. For example, why did I make it?
Yeah, that survivor's guilt, right?
Why did I make it? Why did somebody else get killed? Did I do enough? You know, and then you mentioned the anger from your prior guest from the movie theater. I still have that rage. Like, I felt that again today. Like, how can this be happening? These people are going to go through that. How can you be out in a social setting where you're just trying to enjoy your life? That's the irony in this, because the people at Borderline, just like myself being in Las Vegas, we're there to forget about the problems in the world.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, in a split second, you're in the middle of the worst problem you'll ever face in your life.
Yeah. Big difference between this shooting in Vegas is Vegas was a lot of people from Southern California, but you know, the survivors and the victims kind of spread out from a wide area. Here, you've got some students from Pepperdine, Cal Lutheran, but it was all people mostly from Thousand Oaks. Is this going to change that community forever?
Oh, absolutely. The reason why is because Thousand Oaks has always touted itself as being the safest city on the planet. So this is a shock for that community and the country too, because this now sends a message to everybody that really there is no safe place. And it really is a wake-up call too, because sometimes in cities like Thousand Oaks, you can let your guard down because you think, well, I live in a town. I live in Pasadena, for example. Sometimes I find myself just thinking, because I'm in Pasadena, I'm going to be okay. But I'll tell you, shootings like the Vegas shooting, recently the Pittsburgh shooting, where I grew up, by the way, 30 minutes from that, and now we have the Thousand Oaks shooting. It really truly is a wake-up call, and you view your surroundings now completely different.
We also heard from a young guy. His name was Garrard, and he was there last night. He made it out, and our Mark Mester asked him will you ever go back into an environment like this? And he said, I yes.
As soon
and
as
he
they
said,
repair the windows.
Yeah, he said if they repair the windows by next week, we'll probably be there. He's able to do that. Others may not be able to. Either way, how important is that?
Well, he's saying that now.
Yeah.
And that's before he's gotten any. First of all, I pray that he goes and all these victims get some kind of mental health intervention. Because I will tell you, speaking firsthand, I would not have been able to get through the last year of my life without being in regular therapy. I'm still in therapy 3 times a month, and I'm still grappling with PTSD. So a day after shooting, saying, "Look, I'll be back there next week."
Yeah.
When things soak in, I hope he goes out and gets some help. And one thing I will tell you from what I've learned, being a survivor of a mass shooting, everybody reacts to the trauma differently. And I could speak for myself. I just told somebody the other day, I was so outgoing before the Vegas shooting. And I'm a single parent, you guys know, of a little girl. She's 12. Give you a quick example. Just a couple weeks ago, taking her to the movie theater, I find myself trying to go when there's not anybody going.
Yeah.
And then I get on the list with my daughter to pick a seat, and I'm picking somewhere where there's nobody.
Yeah.
Because I, to this day, don't even really want to be around people in a social setting. So this has hit me hard. Hopefully it doesn't hit him that hard, but I'll tell you, you've got to give yourself time and get in and get some mental health intervention.
It has to be tough. I mean, I'm sure you try to find the exits too in every situation. And another thing that people deal with, and I know I dealt with it after 9/11 as a journalist, and sometimes when we have shootings like this, I actually feel guilty for posting something happy even 24 hours later.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that's a byproduct of trauma. In other words, you feel bad for feeling good because look at what so many people went through, and you survived. It's the guilt of allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to really enjoy yourself. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I look at my postings on social media since the Vegas shooting, and I don't find that many where I'm really truly smiling or really out having a great time. It really does change your mental faculty. I mean, one thing you got to realize too is that when you're in the middle of a shooting like that, it's hard for average people to try to grasp what you're. I know people do try to get what you're going through, but you're there to have fun. Then all of a sudden, I heard the gentleman say initially he knew it wasn't firecrackers, right? That was kind of how I felt at Vegas. Yeah. But when you really realize it's gunshots, then you're in this mode where every move you make, whether you move to the left, to the right, do I duck? Do I try to grab a bar stool and throw it through a window? Every move you make is the difference between life and death. And that's what survivors.
You know what you're doing? You're starting to think like a police officer or a soldier.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
But here's the difference, though. Yeah, you're right. But the big difference, though, is that we're not trained.
Yeah.
We're not trained at all. And that's what they're going through. They're trying to react, respond, but they're not trained for it. And then, do you live? Do you die? For example, after the fact, we know there was one shooter at Borderline, right? After the fact, in Vegas, we know there was a shooter up in the Mandalay Bay. But let's all try to remember what these folks were going through in the midst of it. They don't know whether there's more than one shooter. They don't know. In Vegas, we didn't know where the shooter was.
And a lot of echoes too, which makes it sound like it's come from all over the place.
Exactly. And then you think there's more than one shooter. And then you're thinking, okay, do I go into a room or not, or hide somewhere? Then when you do that, because I did that during the Vegas shooting, I found a bleacher and then I ran into this little area. Then I'm thinking, like the Pulse nightclub shooting, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to be in here. The shooter comes over here, then I'm gonna get killed very easily. So imagine all those thoughts that are running through your mind during the shooting when you've never been trained to even be a part of any kind of mass shooting. And on top of that, your mind is out there just to relax. I mean, that transition from being there and you're doing country line dancing to shots fired, Imagine that contrast.
Let's talk about the folks in Thousand Oaks, and Glenn's mentioned it. It's a tight community. A lot of people are going to know someone who knew someone. In fact, even if they knew someone who got killed there. As a survivor, if those people are watching, how can they talk to the people who did survive in a kind, proper way that will help you? What has helped you?
Yeah, good question. What's helped me is talking to people that were impacted in some way by the shooting. By that I mean, for example, whenever I'm having a bad day, like today, I'm not calling anybody in my family because I don't feel like my family's going to get it. So what this is going to create in Thousand Oaks is and those surrounding communities is a lifelong bond. It's so hard to explain it, but it's like you are connected now at the hip forever because you were in some way impacted by such a mass tragedy. And what I would tell these individuals in Thousand Oaks and the outlying communities is reach out to each other because you all can try to really grasp what went on because you were in some way connected to that. Because bear in mind, you're right. I was just talking about it back when I was getting makeup done, that people that live in those communities that might not have even been at borderline or don't have somebody that was at the shooting, they're impacted by it. They might even get PTSD symptoms. So you have to rely, don't be afraid to rely on those who were really impacted by the shooting because those individuals understand the most what you went through, and that becomes like a fellowship. It's like what we talked about a few minutes ago with these private groups on social media with the Vegas survivors. Boy, if you could just get in there and read some of the posts, you know, somebody will wake up and say, I'm having a horrible day, but I just drove by and saw a car on the freeway, the Route 91 sticker, and I smiled. Think about it, just being able to post an emotion like that on a platform where thousands of people are going to get it, that is therapy in itself to help you manage yourself through the trauma. Bear in mind though, this trauma is it's going to take a long time. And that's another piece of advice I would give everybody in the community, to be patient, because this is not something where you tear up your knee or get a scratch and it's over in a couple weeks and it's repaired. The inner trauma, our souls are very vulnerable, and it takes a long time to repair them. And then there's going to be another problem is triggers. I'm still dealing with that all the time, little triggers. I go to a crosswalk, I press a button, and I hear this noise sometimes near my gym. What does it remind me of? Shots fired.
Shots fired, yeah.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
And days like this.
And in spite
exactly.
of what that gentleman said about going back next week, I think if it did open and he went back next week or the week after that or a month from now, I think he's going to get it. You'd get inside, you're going to get the smells are familiar, and you're going to remember what you saw in that room, and it's going to make you very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bryan, thank you so much for sharing not only your story and your emotions, but also tips with everyone watching today and going through what has happened.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for caring.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you.